On to today's topic of the mark making examples. So this is a sheet that I have put together. It's actually 3 sheets, and each is a standard 8.5 by 11. You can see, sorry for the glare, but you can see them here. Now, that's not to say that I'm not still doodling things and figuring stuff out that will be going on the sheet, another sheet, a fourth one. But what this is, and I've got a couple of solo examples of this, is I've sat down with all of these mark making materials and I've tried to figure out how many different ways can I make the same marks, or how many different ways can I use different tools to illustrate the same thing. And so, there's absolutely nothing to be lost if you sit down and just scribble with whatever materials that you have and interact those materials together and see what combinations they present you with. Like yesterday, on the page that I did for yesterday, in that you can see it really well in that first panel, but most specifically down in the bottom left panel here. So I drew those trees in the background in a dark pencil crayon, but then I spattered over top of them with a white ink on a toothbrush, and it diffuses, it like just destabilizes the solidity of the value, but it also diffuses that background so that it isn't as prominent, as sharp as it is in the foreground. And so it's those little things like that, which is the sort of experimentation you get when you start exploring all the different ways that you can make marks. And we got Dee Dee joining us. Hiya, Dee Dee. Welcome aboard. And what that presents you with is so many different options on how to interpret the elements that you're going to be illustrating in a story. And so sitting down, and this isn't just sitting down in one go and just picking up every mark making tool and trying to objectively make, a graph that denotes all the different styles. What it really is just sort of, as you come across stuff, go, oh, you know what, that works too. And you grab this random sheet of paper or papers and add in that combination that you did. And so over time, you can't help but collect these, and there's a great benefit to that across the board. But Dee Dee says, I hope you're on the mend. Oh, thank you, Dee Dee. I'm doing my best. Pneumonia. So it takes a while to get out of it for me. And, my breathing is together now, and I'm getting there. My voice is at least returned enough that I can do my best Barry Manilow. Are you ready? No. Okay, so there's 3 different sheets that I have been assembling over time. Let's zoom in on this guy a little bit there, and then we'll do the same for the next as well. There's a lot of information on these. I realize that I'm not going to necessarily walk everybody through every aspect of it, but you can see just in the examples of our first page that there's different combinations that you're going to get drawing on a black piece of paper as opposed to a white piece of paper, laying down acrylic or ink wash or watercolor wash, and then going over top of that. All of these different approaches to our mark making, and our mark making surfaces changes the game entirely. So that when you put information on top of that, there's a whole baker's dozen of different effects that you can get from each one of those combinations, whether it's black piece of paper, acrylic, ink, watercolor wash down, and then you're working on top of that. So on the left-hand side of this first page is on black paper for uniformity's sake. Hiya, Barbara. Welcome aboard. And so some of the stuff that I come across in doing this and trying to continually just do reiterations of the same subject matter, and the subject matter is entirely arbitrary. You can draw a spoon if you want. I don't care what you draw, but Barbara says, I hope that baker's doesn't include some donuts. Um, so then you've got there's hard mark making tools, our standards of pencils, pens, things like that. Then we get into soft ones like um, Contes and chalks and pastels and trying different, so you're going to see a lot more diffusion in these marks as you make them. So there's going to be softer, more blurry edges, and what kind of effects do those present us with? And then there's working on top of pre-existing images or stamped images or embedded images within the image that you're drawing. I'm constantly doing this and constantly trying to explore, investigate those options. Like there's electrical tape in here. There's uh, what do you call it? Medical tape. There's masking tape. We're just trying whatever different thing that we can put together and test and see what works. And so that as we're putting together our images for our storytelling ventures, we can look back on this sort of mixed bag of different effects that we've figured out in different presentations and how these different marks will come together and pick and choose and say, well, I want to kind of get this kind of a vibe or this kind of a feeling in here, and like in this third sheet here, I've got things like zip a tone down. I've just put lines down on a piece of paper. There's different tapes and papers and surfaces and, doing things like just rubbing graphite on a piece of paper and then taking an eraser and just pulling out the highlights of information, from that graphite drawing and sort of start drawing in reverse by erasing out a drawing. There's so many effects and things that we can get that this is one of those things where there's no right or wrong approach to this. You're never going to run out of combinations or options or things to discover. Like certain colored pieces of cardstock, depending on the cardstock you've got and how it was put together. There are cardstocks where you can erase the surface of a cardstock and find that it's a lighter paper underneath. So that by erasing over top of this card surface, you're actually removing the pigment from it so that now you're drawing without having to make any marks other than your control over an eraser. And electrical erasers like the Derwent guy that some of us have. And, these guys are great for that sort of effect. So, these different approaches are fun. They're fun, and that experimental aspect to them is really liberating. I'm missing a whole bunch of stuff here. Oh, Jim's joined us. Hiya, Jim. Welcome aboard. Jim and Dee Dee are cousins. So, the reason that I put this up today is to just try to promote and encourage the idea of you sitting down when time presents you. And if you're ever just looking at, because often people will do this, they'll look at limitation before they'll look at opportunity. And if you're like, I can't figure out how to take this any farther, I can't figure out how to make this thing that I want to make, this image that I want to approach, and I don't know how to go about doing it. Having explored possibilities, having given yourself the chance to play at making different images, you may or may not realize that you've got the answer in front of you. And there's a number of different things like this, like something I showed last week that now this isn't mine. This was put together by, I think it was Giordano, Dick Giordano, when he was in Wally Wood's studio. He put together Wally Wood's 22 panels that always, let me do the overhead, 22 panels that always work. And what this is a number of subset rules that he has for telling, for storytelling, to just get him through a project. When In this case, the argument is that you get some variety in those boring panels where some writer has a bunch of lame characters sitting around and talking for page after page. That's what I would. And how to keep the viewer's eye moving and how to make the story more interesting, despite the fact that he feels is, it's not as exciting as it could be. And then there's, a few of his different rules and teachings and what some of the symbology of these specific panels are. I've got those notes written down. But the point of showing that as well is that there's such a wealth of different ways that we can sit down and have ready-made for us just a way to dive right in. Like you look at this thing and you go, I kind of like that effect that I've discovered over here on page 2 in the center there. Well, I like how that result turns out. How did I do that? And then there's your note. It's your, I can't read any of this stuff because the screen's too small. Hold on, let me switch to the page 2 part and arbitrarily pick something. Pre-stamped surface, black and white, brush on top. Okay, let's do that. Why not? So it's one of those things where it's like, if I've given myself the opportunity to discover these different methods, these different approaches in advance, and so when I'm sitting down now and I'm trying to do my workups for the story and trying different effects and trying to get different images together here, because I've done that extra work intermittently as I'm doing whatever else it is that I'm doing. I've got all those easy answers ready for me. I've got a whole bunch of notes and things I've taken over the years on different creators' processes, on different things to consider on a regular basis. And, and I'm going to be sharing as many of those as I can with people here. It's important to me to pass on knowledge, to pass on information. And so because of that, I'm going to give you guys whatever I've got. The last few days, I've tried to reorganize our library here downstairs, and to get the books in order, because I have to catalog everything for whatever. But in the course of doing so, I've rediscovered a whole bunch of different things that I have, like Baron Story's notes, Wally Wood's notes. Things that I already knew that I had, but things that for me, because I've been exposed to them for X amount of time and have really taken some of this to heart, it isn't something that I've actively thought about or had to necessarily need posted nearby, but we forget sometimes. Information and knowledge isn't something that should be privatized, institutionalized, or kept secret from one another. If there's stuff that I have that I can share with everybody, I'm going to do it. So we're going to be bringing a whole bunch of stuff forward. I got a bunch of notes, and it's things that look like this. Let me see if I can, hold it up here so you can see all kinds of little notes that I've got on a regular basis and how those things apply and come together in my sense of self in order to make me a better storyteller. So, and optimally for you, for it to facilitate whatever it is that you want to do. So buckle up, prepare yourselves. We're going to have some fun. If anybody needs me to go through the 3 pages here, if you want that, I can do that. I don't mind. But Jim says, what's a art tip you picked up in 2023 that is for useful? And where did you pick it up? Jim says, mine is, Wally Wood's 22 panels. I hadn't heard of it, but really examined it because of Christopher. Thank you. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. That's good, Jim. And if you want, Jim, I'll send you a copy of the one that I've got with my additional notes to it. Because what I've got of his breakdowns on the sides of the page and what the specific information is in those panels isn't in supply when you just find the 22 panels. They don't have that connected to it. And then there's the Wally Woods Credo and a couple of other notes on Wally here. But I can try to copy that and send you that, Jim, if that'll help. Dee Dee's still thinking about that question. Hiya, Chris. Welcome aboard. Did you discover Jim's unique comic style? That's cool. Thank you. There we go. So, yeah, there's so many different things that we can pick up and we can learn over time. Like, like even in the active process, like there's books like Panel Discussions that I've got here. There's some examples in Panel Discussions, and I'll show you this. I'll flip the camera to the overhead. Now, this is Panel Discussions. This is an old book that has interviews with a pretty solid name of creators. Mike Carlin, Randy Stradley, Mike Waringo, who's passed away now, Mark Schultz, Dick Giordano, Mignola, Stelfreeze, Scott Hampton. There's two Hamptons, Scott and Bo. Mazzucchelli. He did year one for Batman, for those that are wondering. And his Parapolis is his, if I hope I've said it correctly, his some of his own solo work is just absolutely genius. Chris Muller, Walt Simonson, George Pratt, Jean Van Fleet, Mark Chiarello. He was the art director for DC for years. Mr. Will Eisner. Of course, it's the follow-up. So some of these creators each have their own specific take on how they approach the work. And very different from how the next person approaches the work, and yet at the same time their method sits solid for them. It's this is how they come at it. This is what makes sense to them. And it's very different from the person beside them, and their approach and their stylization is grossly different. This is a type of artist that I tend to like in my junior years, like in my teens, in the 20s and stuff. It was a lot of the painters that were into comics in the 80s and on. They were earlier than that, I'm sure, but the ones that really took foot, like Van Fleet, the Hamptons, Scott and Bo, George Pratt, Kent Williams, a lot of these guys were just, Bill Sienkiewicz, they were just doing very different things and coming at comic book sequential art as fine art and trying all kinds of different things. So Barbara says, my art tip was that if someone tells you have enough craft supplies and you don't need any more, stop talking to them immediately. You don't need that negativity in your life. I don't know. Maybe there's something to be said for limitation on space. I think that having all of the toys is a great thing when it comes to options and availability for different directions to turn. But you've got to be able to play with your toys and not just collecting and hoarding toys. So I think that if you're utilizing all the things that you're utilizing to whatever ability you can, and you want to replenish or stock something new or try something new, sure, but you can have too many toys. You really can. You can do an awful lot without a lot of stuff in your hands, and it's just a matter of figuring that out, and exploring it, like what we've got in the list here. But I'm not saying that if they tell you you can't do something, don't let them be your friend, Barbara. But there is something to be said for, how many pencils and pens can we have? Says a person who has drawers. So I can't say I'm innocent by any means. But I tend to really go at it. Christopher Arting and purchasing art supplies are two completely different things. That's true. That's very true. Um, I I'm always compelled when you go to somebody else's art studio and they have the things, so much stuff, and and so much of it isn't opened. And we're not talking about this are the paints that I've got that I'm immediately using. This is my stock here. So if I need to crack open a new one of this, I'm good. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the ones that have to have all of the things, even though they don't use all of the things. I've never understood that. That's what a challenging conceit that is. Dee Dee says, "Have you seen my desk?" Yeah, but the difference being is that doing and exploring and playing, and you got to do that. And Dee Dee, you do that well. So, um, yeah, I've always got a kick out of that. I've always got a kick out of the, just I need I grab, and do you use it? I'm gonna get to. I got these great plants. So sometimes those things that are holding us up from doing that is just simply understanding what we've got. This example that I've put up today, it's black and white. All of the majority of the mark making here is only utilizing black and white tools. There is blue tape in there. And then there's one instance, if you look at bottom right corner, you'll see an eye is purple. Excuse me, pardon me, I'm still getting my voice back. You'll see an eye is purple. And that's because when you put ink down, that is, you hit it with bleach, certain inks will hold, but other inks will just completely diffuse their value and lose their pigment. I love that personally. I'm going to play with that a little bit today. And, that there's fun effects that we can find in doing that. And then there's this whole kaleidoscope of color that comes through when you hit that ink with the bleach. And the trick is trying to figure out how to dab it gently with a cloth, not smudge it, but dab it gently with a cloth so that it stops the process, right? But at the same thing, so that you don't lose more and more value, so that it halts that process, but at the same time, it doesn't make a mess of it as well. So there's so many things. Chris says, I just found art supplies for the year. So I'll be in a no-buy supplies year. That's healthy. That's good too. Dee Dee says, I started with a wood board, a pencil, and a sketchbook. I hear you. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's important that, give yourself the time to, to just see what you can get from what you've got. There's so much that we can further delve into, further deepen our skill set with by the more that we really push this item. Somebody sent me a message yesterday because I use these Mastercraft pencils amongst my tools and supplies. They're like, what are you doing? That's not what that's for. And I'm like, well, that's not what it's for you. It's just a pencil, right? And to me, it's a fun pencil to draw with, and especially when my hands are a little bit, monkeyed up as they are. And that sort of limited thinking of this tool is specifically for that can really halt progress and can really help your furthering of yourself, your further developing of your skill set. So break a thing, Chris says, I also have to add that I don't have more space to store anything new. Oh yeah, it's completely understandable. Diddy says, I always think about people who say books, you need more books. Those people don't get it. Oh, and Linda loves these pencils too. Yeah, you can find them at like a Canadian Tire or a hardware chain store of some kind. And you can buy these in bulk. And if you do find them in bulk, look for the ones that include the fancy pencil sharpener for these flat pencils. And that will sharpen these suckers so you don't have to do it with a knife. And they'll get it to a relative point. Nothing really sharp, but the way that these operate, you don't want them too sharp because they'll just etch into whatever it is anyways. But Linda says Ace Hardware. Okay, well, there you go. There's another channel. I'm not familiar with Ace, but maybe it's an American thing. I don't know. Home Canadian Tires where I got mine. Guess where that's located? So yeah, even exploring something like this. Now you can do these sort of breakdowns, these mark making examples like I've got here, utilizing your different pencils. You can, if you've got that field range of pencils, from your 4H, 5H, 6H, I don't know how sharp they go. I say sharp because what marks can you really make with a 6H pencil? All the way through to like a 9B. If you've got those, you can still do this same kind of thing using that alone. And just really pushing and seeing what you can do with some of these different things. Even the softer leads, if you make some marks down and smudge them out, a process I was using yesterday. If you check back on yesterday's stream, you'll see I keep smudging with my fingertip some of the marks as soon as I put them down. And then I would come in with this eraser and cut back out the highlight sections that I don't want, this intermediate gray tone to be worked on, or to be sort of spread through there. And I want to work on that a little bit, pull it back out again. So, there's how much different is that going to be from using a 2B lead from a 9B lead? How much contrast is there going to be because of those different corresponding values that you're going to get? So again, exploration, right? Excuse me. Barbara says, I get it about books. I have many, and I have given away many. However, if we downsize, I need to bring her house with me. Oh my goodness, yeah. As a youth, I used to think I wanted a really cluttered studio. Now, in my late 80s, I think I'm becoming a minimalist slightly. I like it. See, at the tender age of 100, I've decided that I used to be 39 every year. Now I'm 100. I think that there's a refinement that's coming into play more and more for me in my studio space. That it's a far more finely tuned machine, but because I do a lot of mixed media stuff, and because I'm doing a lot of work that utilizes tapes and papers and whatever other things that I've arbitrarily decided to stick down on a surface that I to scribble and doodle with, I tend to find that I will never be, that minimalist guy with no tools to call upon. But I do pass on materials a lot, and I do pass on, old pens, old markers, old whatever else. The grandkids tend to. I never tend to have really old dead stuff because that's dead stock of mark making tools, because the kids and then now the grandkids all lay claim to it and it disappears for their projects. But there's a great deal of people that are making switches to digital application now and eliminating all of these traditional tools. I can't do that. There's a part of me that's easily both. Maybe were I to buy myself a quick tablet one day and carry that around in my pocket instead of a pocket full of pens or eye pokers, as Laurie calls them. We go to church on Sunday. When I go, I always have a sketchbook with me and little 3, 4, 5 pens in my pocket here. And I illustrate during the sermons. When I'm supposed to be sitting dutifully paying attention, I'm doodling whatever he's talking about. And that works for me for listening. Justification of self. So, but if I had a digital tablet, maybe I'd doodle on that instead. I don't know. But I do like to work traditional and then scan that into the system. And then what I've scanned into the system, I do like to monkey around with digitally as well. So I like that fusion personally. I do appreciate that. And it sort of helps me to, I don't know, feet in both ponds, but all of these skills and things that I've tried to develop some understanding of over years, I don't want to throw that away. And if I can pass out, maybe if I can pass it on first, but I absolutely marvel and wonder at people that are working either entirely one way or entirely another because they've really generally refined that process for either or. And I commend them. Here's to you. Because that's a lot of effort, to develop any skill set. And so, I mean, you could even sit down, and for that matter, with traditional material like this and make an example for yourself. But you can also do this with digital mark making tools and sit down and try to figure out all the different approaches to different brushes or different combinations of effects or different what happens with different layering approaches to things. You could do the same sort of thing for this digitally as well because there's just as much diversity in mark making that you can see. Excuse me. Let's see, let me catch up. Didi says, whatever works for you. I have to have my stuff in the open. It looks cluttered, but I need to see stuff and not tuck it away. Completely understand that. That's why my studio is wall-to-wall bookshelves. Jim says there's value in both ways. Yeah, and of course it was in agreement with one another. We will never use all the ideas that we have. That's for darn tootin'. Chris will be right back. Linda concurs with that. That's why I always recommend writing things down. There's an immediacy I find in doing a page a day, a story a day. There's an immediacy for me that because there's just so much rattling around in this noggin of things I want to do, the more that I push myself for that immediate approach, that immediate story, that immediate image, that immediate, oh, I wanted to put this in something. Oh, well, let's do it. Still does not negate me keeping the book of tricks where I write stuff down in. Still does not keep me from having two solid sketchbooks beside that where I'm scribbly dibbling ideas as well. And there's real value in those. There's so much that we can imagine on a momentary basis that we'll never capture all of it. Well, you'll never write all of it down either. But at the very least, you can come close to not losing some of it. I did a piece a couple years ago. I think it was called Traveling Circus. It's where when I walk around the streets, I'm constantly daydreaming. And it's just that, I'll walk down the main street of downtown here in London, Ontario, Canada. And wouldn't that be crazy if, aquatic life, like whales and fish and such, were actually in the air. And so here's these humpback whales swimming in the air above Main Street, London. And got to put that, and that's maybe a story in and of itself, or maybe that's just an image to want to explore. But it's those things that we don't want to lose. Those random imaginings that somebody else will look at and go, I see an entire world, I see an entire story in that. And nothing wrong with building on that, that's for sure. what I'm going to do is go over this quick little scribble as I was sitting there watching a film last night with Lori, and then I'm going to hit it with ink just to show you the fun part of how we can really monkey around with the marks that we make. Just using something like some just activator that plays off of the marks that we've put down. Then it says I'm going to get Procreate. My Photoshop is 2012. Great. Yeah. It's whatever you feel comfortable working with. I really feel comfortable working with Photoshop from 2005. People think oh my God, what is it? Photoshop program. Where'd you get that one? I'm like, it's just a really old one. And, they just have a tool that does the things that you just took 3 steps to do. I'm like, yeah, but I can do this with it, and I like to break and bend things. So I think you would love Procreate. Yeah, maybe, but like I'm a stick in the mud. So it's Photoshop I've got working. If I lose this program, I might try out a new one rather than, scramble and cry. But especially if, as Didi's detailed, that Photoshop is, Procreate, I'm sorry, is far less expensive than like a Photoshop is. So this fountain pen, and I recognize that I'm holding the nib upside down. I got a comment on this before. I find it gives me a finer control. And I like the way that the bend moves down and up like so, as opposed to this way where it just feels like a little bit of a drag. So that's why I use it like that. So I have no idea what I was thinking about, just some people running last night as I drew these. But what we're going to do is just put some ink to it, and then I'm going to hit the ink with bleach, and we're going to watch the ink fall apart a little bit here. So just a little bit of fun. I haven't picked a subject for today, so whatever it is that I'm doing, I've got to incorporate this drawing into it. I haven't picked a one-page story suggestion, so if today, I agree about Procreate, Chris. It took me months to get the will to start using it. It's really versatile. There you go. Today, Didi was holding a red nib. Enough said. Your drawings on paper rock, Christopher. Oh, well, thanks very much, Didi. It's very nice of you. I was solely a sketchbook guy for years. Yeah, I've seen Jim's sketchbooks. They're really cool. Okay, so my pencil drawings are really tight and really basic. They're really just limited lines, and because I figure if I'm going to have to go back and ink a drawing, why draw the entire thing when I know for a fact I'm just going to have to either reiterate those lines and try to capture the organic feel and weight and movement of the pre-existing penciled lines, whereas I can explore some of that with the ink as I move to that next stage. So that's why I tend not to put any of the details in a pencil drawing unless it's for somebody else. But I tend to want to ink my own work. Now, some of the things that I've done of late, I have to send pencils off and hope the best that they understand what it is that I'm putting down on paper. Excuse my coughing again. Voice isn't quite back yet. Does anybody have tools that they've used for years and they refuse to give up? Is there anybody that has a favorite style of pencil or a favorite drawing pen, or the old trusty tool that I got to bear witness while Didi Willingham who has had a heat gun in her studio for years. I got to bear witness to its demise. And she immediately had a backup ready to go. She knew it was coming. I thought it was great. You see, little things like throwing a watch band on this guy. You know, these are decisions that you make on the fly, right? I've just decided that this guy would wear a watch. Why? Because people wear watches. So why not? You know, there's no specific reasoning behind some of our decisions. We're just exploring those characters and the options that a dialogue between ourselves and our process tells us as we're working. You know, it seems like the energeticism of this character means that they're a person on the go, and maybe they wear a watch or something like that, and just sort of staying open and receptive to the moment as you're drawing. So sometimes it's hard to try new things. Sometimes it's hard to take yourself out of your comfort zone and be open to the possibility of using new tools or to using new techniques. And I understand that. I completely get that. Don't ever let somebody, well, if you tried this instead, and feel guilty like you have to do that. If what you work with works for you, you do your thing. And don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses. Don't worry about your work in comparison against the next person beside you's work, because they're not you. And even if they were you, whatever, you know, you've approached on this specific image, well, the magical other you still might take a different approach to it. So it's just, it is as in to say, like, if you draw this today, when you were to draw the same thing tomorrow, you might have done it a different way. You might have approached it in a different way. So there's no expected standard. Now, there are artists that their entire output tends to have a uniformity across the board. Good for them. That's great. If that works, right on. Okay, so I've got some marks down on our guy here. We'll give him some details in his face. Give him a little snooty look to him. I hope everybody's been having a good 2024 so far. I keep liking to say 2025. I don't know why. I'm going to sweep his hair back a little bit. Give him a little bit of variety. One of the things I'm going to want to talk to you about in the next little while is Bill Watterson's work. And he has a fantastic thing he can do with a flourished line that I want to show people. But if you've got some Calvin and Hobbes accessible in your world, take a look at the way that the person draws, and you'll see what I mean by that flourished line. Okay, so I've got some marks down. I'll hold this up. There he is. He's running. It's kind of like a really spread gait, kind of like a Tintin run. If you know the work of of Tintin, you'll see that there's a real fun spread leg, sort of a run. Jim says, I'm like Steve Martin in The Jerk. I found my purpose. Nice. Nice, buddy. Really good. I'm like Steve Martin in A Jerk because I like protecting cans. Okay. So we're going to just put this second character in the back here. And I'm really going to wash this character out as to be largely silhouette, just to really distinctly separate this character from that. Give them very different outfits, you know, very different tones to them. I think that when people are drawing into figuring out characters, you gotta have fun and try to really make them uniquely different. But what's going to be exciting for us, well, at least for me, is when we hit this with ink, we're going to see all kinds of crazy color going on. Now, if I just wanted to do the color diffusion on this person's largely black outfit, I would draw this person first, belt the bleach into the drawing. It's bleach that we're going to use, by the way, the activator. And then go over the character in the foreground so that ink is clean and crisp and unmarred. But I'm not entirely concerned about both of our characters getting diffused here. So but just very different stylistically, one from the next. Part of my snuffling. I apologize today. Robert just read an article about Calvin and Hobbes in the New Yorker. Oh, and it says, thanks very much, everybody. Take care. Bye. I was going to ask you about that article. But bye for now, Barbara. We'll see you later. Thanks very much for coming out. Okay, so when I'm drawing, I think about the form, the surface form of, if it's a character, if it's an object, whatever it is. And I try to apply values in accordance to that. So I don't have to draw the entirety of the person's chest here. But what I can do is have a degree of understanding about the parts that are directly exposed to light, the parts that would be more refractive of light, and then the parts that would be, just you'd have those glares and those reflections right off of a surface. But I still want to define the form of said person. It's somewhat flattering too, I guess. So now we'll put in her face here. Just making that up on the fly. Also give this person some short and spiky, punky hair. I mean, everybody has this haircut now. Okay, so here's these two characters. We got them scribbled from an initial doodle that I just scribbled down last night. Now, Barbara's going to leave us hanging, Dee Dee says. Yeah, she left us hanging. I read an article last night in the New Yorker. Bye. We got to give Barbara a hard time about that. That's fine. Okay, so this is bleach. And so I've got it in a spritzer bottle, and if it's starting to feel a little stable, give it a shake. And I smell it. I usually smell it to see if it's got, just get that bleach working. As silly as that might seem to others, that, it's important for me. Okay, so I'm going to spritz this here on the surface, or it's just going to leak because I didn't put the lid on tight enough. Get that out of there. Get out of there. All right. Make sure my all set. All right. So I've got it sprayed, and you can see how it's pulling a value shift in that the foot of this first character here. Okay, we're good. I was worried it was leaking. So I'm just letting it sit there on the surface right now, but you can see how it's got some purple peeking through on each of our characters now. It's diffusing a little bit, which I don't really want, but that's okay. But we're getting some wonderful, fun little color shifts going on. And I kind of like that. So one of the things that I'll do, we're going to hit a little bit on this side. See what that gives us. One of the things I like to do is if I come in with another ink, like an acrylic ink or something like that, I will wash into this, and that purple interaction now with like a yellow or something like that starts to give us different things. That's fun. And you can see how this is still lighting up a little bit more. So I should give it a moment. But we've got fun things happening in here. It's sort of similar to Silver Point. And if people aren't familiar with Silver Point, I'll have to tell you about that on another chat. Really nice hanging out with you guys. I hope everybody has a great week. I'm heading out. Talk to you later. Take care, Jim. Thanks very much, buddy. Annie said a new Phil's coffee shop is opening near her. Oh, okay. Chris is back. We don't have Phil's here, Dee Dee. Yeah, I'm not sure what Phil's, and Dee Dee says we don't either. I don't know what Phil's coffee shop is. We are entirely monopolized in Canada by Tim Hortons. A little bit more. The reason I like using cardstock is because of, there we go. I really like how cardstock can take, some wettening of the surface, little spritzes of water or bleach or whatever it is. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to try to get that in there. Excuse my hand. So you can see how there's a lightening of a nice, lovely light purple peeking through in certain spots. So as I come in now, and I've got, let's see, what do we got handy? So here's Fudenosuke yellow. So if I come in now with this yellow, and as I'm running it through this surface here, it does, like it's just, that purple peeking through there is so pretty. It just gives it a little something more than if I was just to leave it as the black line. Just gives a little more something, a little more of a kick to it. Oh, Jim hangs out at one and draws. I understand. You can wet gel pens, Christopher. They behave nicely. Oh yeah, that's for sure. This isn't a gel pen, it's a Fudenosuke. But so we'll put him in his yellow togs, his purple highlights. Just fun. And we'll put her to some red stuff. You know what I should have done? But I'll actually just come through. Generally, I'm one that leaves the highlights out as I'm drawing, like that. But I'll just come through with the white Posca in a second. I don't know. Is this a super group? Is this fashionistas on the fly? I don't know. I'll have to open the book and find a random, just open up to whatever the next random one-page story suggestion is and have to incorporate this image into it. Because that's what I set myself up with. James hangs up. You can get, I learned that from Maria Tellier. Use the pen and then brush with a little water to activate the pigment. Yeah, that's a lot of fun too. It's good to have a space to hang out. Yeah, it really is. And it's also a really good form of furthering your art language, but in conversation with other creatives, if you come across any of those hangout spaces. Or it's also revitalizing because of the life energy around you of people doing whatever they're doing. Okay, so I'm in now with the Posca, pulling out some highlights on our character here. Pardon me again. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm working on it. So there we go. Lady in her, I don't know, leather outfit. I don't know where I was going with this one. I actually initially thought of it as a jumper. You know, but we go where we're going. Oh my God, here. I can use some water-based colors in here, I think, maybe, or let's see what you are. On the paper. Let's put some little belts and hits of you in here. Have fun. So there we go. Lots of different materials we're mixing together here now, having fun with it. I did that off panel. I'm terribly sorry. So here we go. So we've got our image coming together. And they're different kit and caboodle. And let this, as this dries a little bit more, because there's still some moisture in the paper, and I don't want it to buckle too much from the bleach. But as we let this dry a little bit more, I would come in with that Posca again and further the little white highlights here and there. And just because it'll make that jump up a little bit more. And, it's just fun to play. Oh my God. Who are you? My name's Billy. Okay. So I'm coming in with this orange and just putting in some little, this really does feel kind of like a Tintin. So now this orange in working with the purple, which has still got, some moisture in it, but the purple and the yellow is doing kind of some fun little reactions in the color, and I like that. good fun. Love a good Posca. Yeah, a good Posca pen. I learned about Posca pens from Dee Dee, and their acrylic paint marker. Poscas are really nice. They've got something to them. Are you the one that I just used? Maybe not. Yeah, see, this is a more robust orange. Okay. So here's our first characters. Well, we're going to utilize in our story here and see where this takes us. How dark are you? Not too bad. Yeah. Okay. So let's see how this is. There we go. A little more punchy now. Whatever coloring methods that people are using for their compositions, just play, explore a little bit, have some fun, play around. Who knows what you'll find out? Who knows what you'll discover along the way? Okay, so hopefully this is going to zoom in somewhat, or at least focus it somewhat for us. Yeah, that's about as good as we're going to get. So there's our first couple of characters that we're inputting into the image. Now, clearly, whatever else I put down in this background of this panel, I'm not going to be able to utilize something like the bleach into that background of the image. And the reason that I'm not going to be able to do that is that it'll diffuse all of this again, and it'll remove any of the tonal value that I have in here now. And then again, I'm not entirely sure about, I didn't look too closely at the fastness of it put in a suitcase. I mean, for all I know, this yellow could diffuse or things like that. But in the interim, we've got a fun little bit of business here that we can do something more with. Now, for my own interest, I would take, if this is our foreground image of the red and the yellow, I would probably put a background in with some light blues. And the reason for that is that because of the warmth of these two characters and how it's lifting them up from the page, by doing like a light blue base for whatever the background composition is, it should keep them pulled forward. It should keep them distinctly separated from that background. When you do a thing in Photoshop or other of these art programs, it's called a color hold, where you can change the exterior line of the line art in one part of an image from another, so that you can have a composition that's looks as though it's been drawn with a blue pen, and in the foreground as though it looks as though it's been drawn with a black pen, in order to bring those foreground characters towards the viewer, and in order to give them more punch from that background area, and to have them stand out from it. So there's a whole bunch of little different fiddly bits and things that we can learn over time. But this is a good fun start to whatever we're going to do here. Let me, no, I think that's just in there now. Let me grab the book and let's find a one-page story suggestion. Now, as I usually say, if you've got a one-page story idea you want to suggest, feel free to put in the comments of the video or in any of the social posting that I do, or in the chat, or wherever it is. We'll try to get it in the book as fast as we can. Okay, so we did Canada Land Day. That was a good fun one. And I want to make sure that I'm not missing stuff. Okay, well, let's do this. I've sort of skirted over this one. This is from the conspiracy page that we did, and you can see all these different conspiracy ideas that I've been clicking off over time, but I missed one here from Gary Hodges about Nazis' hyper-advanced tech. Okay, so that's what we'll input this into.